Hello there, collective. We're going to be doing some shadow work here. The thing I'm going to be discussing is what I call shadow narcissism in false twin flame or so-called spiritual connections, soulmate connections. Because at the end of the day, it's not about them. It's about you and taking accountability. So, trigger warning, this isn't fluffy or fantasy confirming, but it is coming from real love for those of you who are seeking healing. These connections do serve a purpose, but it may not be what you thought. And many of you are awakening to what is playing out in these twin flame, I say that in quotation, twin flame dynamics. When you get entangled with someone with narcissistic tendencies, this is also a disclaimer. I am not a psychological professional, so this is all coming from my spiritual point of view. When you become entangled in these narcissist empath type dynamics, it can feel like they're seeing you or affirming you or even mirroring back parts of you. But what they're actually reflecting back is not your authentic self, but often your unconscious narcissistic traits. And we all are on a spectrum here, right? Myself included. Everybody has a certain level of narcissistic traits. It's kind of a spectrum is how I like to see it. But these are wounds or ego distortions, parts of you that crave validation, control, specialness, or emotional safety through performance or power. So how I believe how this shadow mirroring works is many times these connections, they're mirroring back your need to be special. You may unconsciously seek to be idealized or chosen or to be the one who finally gets through to somebody difficult. The narcissist reflects this back in an exaggerated form, either placing you on a pedestal and then tearing you down, right? That's the devaluing. So the shadow narcissism here is, if I'm adored, then I must be worthy. And oftentimes the empath has a wounded ego. Both the narcissist and empath are both operating from wounded ego, but just doing it and operating from different points of view. The empath is seeking validation and worthiness, right? And the narcissist is kind of seeking to validate the inflated or grandiose sense of ego. And it's also mirroring the desire for control through the image. So you might be trying to control how you're perceived, like appearing strong, kind, generous, perfect. The narcissist does the same, but ruthlessly, right? They exploit image to manipulate and survive. So this could be, if I'm good enough, they won't leave, right? The empath feels this need to, control the situation in a different kind of way, which is that's people pleasing or seeking approval. They often mirror your emotional grandiosity. Maybe you believe your love can save or heal others. This is a common one in spiritual dynamics. You're focused on them needing to heal. And it's like you're projecting it outwards when really those are a lot of inner wounds that you're needing to heal within yourself. But you're feeling this savior complex, right? That your depth of feeling is uniquely powerful. The narcissist mirrors this by weaponizing that emotion, drawing you into a fantasy where love conquers the dysfunction. Right? So you're there, that goes back to that need to feel special. And it goes back to, if you love them hard enough, you'll fix what's broken. So this keeps you in a pattern of holding on to the dynamic. It's like that victim, savior, persecutor. You know, this whole cycle keeps playing out because you feel like it's a spiritual mission or purpose to help this person to ascend. You're ascending through them ascending, right? There's like a spiritual codependency that plays out here. And the shadow narcissist, the narcissist will actually expose your own use of fantasy. You might build fantasies of how good things could be by romanticizing the trauma or seeing potential over reality. Narcissists live in fantasy, right? They embody the illusion and draw you in to co-create a world that's not real, right? It's a world that supports their ego. But the shadow aspect of it is you're creating a world where somehow you're saving them from themselves. That's an ego-based control dynamic. I hope I'm explaining this in an understandable way. And I've seen this play out in myself. So I'm here with you. We're not here to judge or condemn, but I really started to notice this pattern, especially in spiritual community, spiritual dynamics. It's kind of like there's all this focus on their need to heal, their need to release. And I have to check myself on that. So the shadow narcissism is, if I believe in them enough, they'll become who I imagine. And this is what's dangerous, because many times people don't just magically become the potential that you've projected onto them or who you imagine them to be. So the narcissist is not reflecting your highest self. They're reflecting your unhealed ego. They're showing you the parts of yourself that seek external validation, control through perfection, superiority through suffering, or power through fantasy. So what healing requires is radical self-honesty. Where are you acting from ego, not essence? Ego humility, can you release the need to be special, right, or redeemed by another? And I've heard this in the twin flame narrative a lot. It's like, as you heal, they start to heal. I've heard that. And there's some mystical qualities to that narrative, right? That your healing will magically heal them. But it's like that codependency again. Your healing relies on their healing. And I did another video of that, like that split soul belief, the danger of that. That your healing is reliant on them ascending or elevating. Also, soul alignment. Are you choosing from truth or from the wounded child or something wounded within you? And when I just shuffled, we have, the Empress, fertility, divine feminine energy. Many times divine feminines get caught up in this trap or narrative of potential and trying to heal people and fix people. People have free will. They have to want to heal themselves. They want to have to seek their own inner truth. Yes, you are powerful. You're a powerful spiritual divine being. But it can also keep you trapped and stuck for a long time if you feel like your spiritual purpose is to heal or elevate somebody else. That can actually divert you away from your mission. So I'm going to pull a spread here that is meant to kind of uncover some of this energy that plays out in these false twin flame narratives, narcissist empath narratives, how the ego is actually running the show in a lot of this. And it's not always your fault. Sometimes unconsciously, we seek to have meaning and purpose, right? The soul longs for that. So we do naturally, on a soul level, want that inner union, right? We want to heal. And sometimes we project our healing onto a whole relationship. So let's break this down. What narcissistic trait this person was mirroring back to you? What narcissistic trait was being mirrored back to you? Or what part of you did they reflect? Not to honor, but to manipulate. Because sometimes these can get into really toxic dynamics where the person can actually manipulate you based on what's playing out in the dynamic, your need to please or validate. What part of you were they mirroring back to you? Ooh, moving on. The need to move on, the need to release. Something that you're trying to release or move on from. And maybe this person walked away or they moved on. And it was reflecting back something that you needed to release or move away from. This is like the Six of Swords. I haven't used this deck in a while, so I had to really look that up. Six of Swords, making peace with something. Definitely conflict and wounds from your past. What was the fantasy that you were attached to with this person? What illusion or idealized story did you co-create or cling to here? Oh, Ace of Cups, a new beginning. So the illusion was that you were going to find love, unconditional love through this person. And that is a big part of these stories, is that you're looking for love. You want unconditional love and an acceptance. So you provide that to the other person, but the illusion was that you were going to get love or validation through this person, that you were going to be able to make peace with something from your past, something that you needed to heal from. And really, you weren't meant to find unconditional love from this relationship. You were meant to find unconditional love for yourself. That's what you're truly seeking. But the illusion is that this person can magically make you feel that. That's the fantasy. And what's the wound behind that fantasy? What is the actual wound behind that fantasy? Well, the Wheel of Fortune in the reverse. Something, a karmic pattern. Bad luck, things that aren't moving forward in your life. Sometimes we seek healing and Wheel of Fortune, good things to happen. If we stick it out with a relationship, right? If we repeat karmic loops, somehow the reward at the end of that is that it's destined, it's fated, it's meant to shift. It's meant to somehow magically get better. But the wound was, there was something that was blocked or repeating in your own life. And this is a core insecurity or unmet need, right? An attachment to a fate or destiny. Sometimes you can get caught up in feeling destined or fated to suffer or struggle because that's something that you always experienced in relationships from an early age. So you're seeking that unconditional love and fulfillment. And how did you maybe use these narcissistic traits to protect yourself? Because then the ego tries to protect itself, right? That's where the people pleasing or validation comes from. You start to try to protect yourself by clinging to a narrative. In what ways did you seek control, adoration, superiority, or invulnerability through a spiritual narrative? The base chakra, the root chakra in reverse. So there was instability. And I always see the root chakra as like that inner child wounding, instability, insecurity, your basic needs not being met, you not feeling grounded. And we tend to chase, cling, and seek validation when we don't feel rooted and grounded and loved within ourselves. We tend to repeat patterns, right? Karmic loops, karmic cycles. Things don't feel like they're working out. And it comes from a deep wound. Some of you, even basic needs weren't met at an early age, or there was this feeling of deep insecurity. And see, the narcissist feels that too, right? They're also feeling deep wounds and insecurity. So they inflate the ego in order to protect themselves, to feel grounded. But it's a false reality. It's a false self-love. It's more ego than real, true self-love and confidence. There's actually a lack of confidence here. That's why there's always seeking and proving, moving on to the next thing that feels like love, but it's actually blockage. And it's blocking your authentic self. Your soul is getting buried when you act from this pattern. Four of Swords, right? Your authentic self is in need of rest, grounding, recuperation, healing. So instead of doing that healing work, you're chasing something. You're chasing that approval. But the authentic self wants to be at peace. You just want peace deep down. And see, a lot of times at a certain point in your journey, you do recognize the end, the need to end something, move forward, and heal. You'll get to that point because you'll have no other choice, right? You'll end up hitting rock bottom, especially in toxic dynamics. You'll become so destabilized. And all of you are at different points in your journey. Some of you have already experienced this. Others of you, you're coming into that realization. And it'll force you to retreat and heal. And seek that love within yourself. That way you're not constantly repeating ungrounded insecurity loops. And what's interesting is you'll even repeat the dynamic with new partners or new relationships until it gets healed. So your true self is actually definitely needing healing and self-love, but your true self, what was your true self? Yeah, this need to win, this need to have a win, right? You want to have a win. But the Chariot represents being in alignment, being aligned with your soul purpose, not through a particular person or relationship dynamic. Once you have self-love, you retreat and you have healing and you start to move on, you'll start to get aligned with your true purpose. That's when you're going to start feeling movement, and you're needing to trust your intuition. When you're ungrounded, you're not trusting your intuition. Your intuition feels like it's constantly being toyed with or tricked. But this is all Ace of Wands with the Chariot, a new beginning, being in alignment. It's like a big surge of energy after a period of healing, after that recognition of the wound. That's the magic. So while the false twin flame can keep you stuck in stagnancy and karmic loops, it can also be a form of liberation. But it's going to take you making that free will choice to do that. And the mirror worth keeping is this new beginning, this new path, this new version of yourself. Yeah, the moon, shadow. Yeah, we're doing shadow work, right? Revealing what's been hidden. Because a lot of times when you're operating from your shadow, it's unconscious. It's an unconscious pattern. You don't even realize it's happening. So that's why there's no judgment here, because it is kind of a natural tendency to bury our unconscious wounds. The reason we get attached to certain people, the reason we play out certain dynamics that aren't good for us. You're revealing the shadow. You're integrating it. That way you can have more balance, because what you're realizing is the shadow, this was very imbalanced. It wasn't prosperous. It wasn't mutually beneficial. These dynamics usually never are. One person is siphoning and feeding off all the energy of the other, and usually that's the narcissist manipulates, is able to have power because you're constantly feeding into them. And the shadow, what's being revealed is that that doesn't work. Yeah, and then you can have fertility and abundance again. Growth. It's like all of a sudden there's this growth and forward movement, and that aha moment of, wow, this is what was playing out here. So sometimes that narcissist empath dynamic can be extremely powerful in revealing your shadow, what you truly need. Patterns that you've been playing out and repeating. So I'm going to get a shadow message, and then I'm going to get an ending card of like encouragement here. What was the shadow being revealed through this mirror? What was your shadow through this mirror revealing to you? Perchance to dream. Yeah, some sort of fantasy dynamic. If I sleep long enough, when I wake up, the pain will be gone, right? If you stay asleep, eventually that pain will go away. This is about radically confronting the pain. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream, or it's the time to surrender, to drown, to dive in headfirst in the cozy, all-enveloping darkness of the blanket. It is a moment of weakness, a desire to close your eyes and surrender just for one moment, 1 second, 1 minute, not like a hero fighting the world, but like a kid just welcoming the darkness outside within fully. Yeah, it's like that inner child. How long will that moment last? A minute? We can say just a minute, but it's not true. Disappearing is but an instant, just the time to take a breath twice. And yet it can take ages. Yeah, ages, lifetimes. Some of this work takes a long time. Ages we will regret, ages that we will have lost, like stolen by our own surrendering. And yet we close our eyes. We let our sense, after the others, slow down to nothing. Sight first, then hearing and smell. Last will be the touch, the comforting hand we all deserve to hold us up when we have done enough and we just cannot but let it go, right? The need to just let it go. Yeah, to move on, to surrender. That's when you start to really feel peace. You're not chasing after a fantasy or, you know, this need to heal or fix something or prove yourself anymore. You have magnetic truth. What pulls you isn't random, it's relevant. Yes, so these dynamics are relevant for your healing. There's a reason certain things stir your soul while others feel hollow. Your inner compass reveals what is meant for you. Release the questions and start honoring what calls you. Yeah, this is about honoring the Chariot and the Ace of Wands. This is about honoring what calls you. Your gifts are trying to orient you. Let them. So these are the gifts that are revealed after you've done this work. That's why shadow work is so important. True fulfillment begins the moment you stop resisting what's been pulling you all along. This is when you get back into alignment with your inner compass, your inner truth. These shadow dynamics will throw you for a loop all over the place until you're willing to surrender that it was just an illusion, that your ego created to protect itself, to have a sense of purpose, but you don't need that anymore. So we will close it out there. I send you lots of love and healing. Bye.